All right, we're live. Wonderful. New World Supernova here, and today I have with me. Do you want to introduce yourself? Huzzah! So, yeah, this chapter was pretty interesting. We got all the Flying Sixes zones confirmed this chapter, which is pretty good to see. It goes by pretty quick, but it's like got what three of them confirmed this one chapter, which is like actually pretty hype worthy. It's like as I was going through, I was excited for it, but it just kind of like hit a touch different. Like a lot of people had guessed who was a saber tooth because of the cat theme of the crew. Um, I've I had said to you in the past, I know that, like, and I talked about it in my live reaction about like my little crackpot theory that it was who's who was Daz Bones, which still is messing with me so badly because we have him in this chapter say, "Oh, I met you once when you were a warlord," which Daz Bone met Jinbei and Impel Down when Jinbei was still a warlord, and mm-hmm. it's it's super weird because like without the cat zone and that one, who's just like in human form. Structurally, he looks like Daz Bones with the cheekbones and the lips and all that. But like he's obviously already got a devil fruit, so he can't have another devil fruit. But then like could Crocodile have tried to take Blackbeard out at one point and then Daz Bones got his fruit stolen? Which means one of the Blackbeard pirates might have Daz Bones fruit as well. I don't know. There's a lot in this chapter, but at the same time, there's like not a lot. If that makes sense. Like going back all the way to the beginning of the chapter, right? Onigashima's still in the air. There's still rubble falling off it, so it doesn't look like it's moved at all. Like it looks like it's this chapter. It's just in the air, sort of stagnant, about to start moving, or it hasn't really moved much. It's still over the sea. Um, then like have Marco healing Chopper, and then Zoro and Brook just trying to take out Marco before they realize that he's helping, which was pretty interesting. Then Marco just goes full flame mode and just burns everyone to try and heal them and set them up, and you can see Queen's crapping himself about it. See, in the past, we've been told in data, like in the Viva cards and data books, and even by Oda in SBS, we've been told that his flames don't burn because they're the flames of revival. But in this chapter, if you actually go look at him when he's burning everyone, there's two different colorings of the flames. One looks yellow, one looks darker, which could be the blue. Which is leading me to believe that maybe he can use normal flames and healing flames depending on the use. You know what I mean? Yeah. The other interesting thing is Marco's a bit scuffled up, so you can tell he's taken a bit of damage from Big Mom, um, which he hasn't immediately healed from. He's got like scratches on his forehead and that. So Or is it, or does he just like purposely go, oh, it's not worth wasting the healing on because it's just like superficial scratches? So I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little upset. There's no T Rex and there's no Raptors in this crew now, unless Yamato. Yeah, yeah. Um. So yeah, skipping ahead then, we have Apu making a comeback in silhouette, trying to jump at Chopper to take out Chopper, and immediately getting chomped on by Drake, which no. And okay, this brings me back to my, like, I actually said this in the live reaction where I was like, okay, so it's no different to Zoro when he quote unquote one shot Killer, and Killer was clean like 2 chapters later in Udon. Ooh, yeah. See, all this says to me as well is any supernova one shots another supernova when caught completely off guard. Because Apu's jumping at Chopper here has no eye, like he has no acknowledgement of Drake being nearby again, and Drake catches him off guard. The same Zoro caught Apu off guard, the same way that Killer caught Zoro off guard, and then Zoro caught Killer off guard. Like, yeah. Biscuits, yeah. See, the the thing here for me, right, is if you're looking at a poo, realistically, One Piece characters are ridiculously durable, and they don't get enough credit for how durable they are because Zoro like cut him, blood spewing up. The front half of his torso would be cut to shit, but he's up. Yeah. So I mean, point made. He's now got reasonable durability where off guard, he's apparently got horrible reflexes, but he's been caught off guard by Kid. He's been caught off guard by Zoro. He's been caught off guard by Drake. Each time been one shot and got back up. Yeah. Yeah. Sanji's. I love how with that as well. So it's like technically right. Like Sanji did sense someone and go after them, but it's not because they were powerful. It's because I think I can. Hey, it's also I noticed this as well. So that cat cafe floor is designed like cat scratching posts for all of Sasaki's crew. So we've now seen Black Maria and her pleasure quarters have her own area in Onigashima. We've seen Who's Who have his own. We've got the gate over to the left side where Sasaki like has a region. I don't know if we've seen Ulti in page ones or Drake's, but seemingly all the Flying Six quarters on Onigashima's castle. Mm. Which is also interesting with Drake. Drake talking about being a lone soldier, because I wonder if he's actually developed his own pirate crew of pirates that aren't Marines, and he's the only one that's undercover to try and sell that sort of cover. And then, mm, and then we get Sasaki versus Frankie, and I'm not gonna lie, a part of me is real hyped for it to be a Triceratops, and another part of me is super let down that it's a Triceratops. Like, I was hoping for something random and out there. Like, I really want the classic dinosaurs, yes, but I also think Oda's like been real creative. Like, look at Black Maria, just like coming out of nowhere with an ancient type of spider, where it's like it'd be really interesting if there was some ridiculous armored ancient zone for him to have. Especially like with the train conductor hat, I like just off the fly of my head, it'd be interesting if he was something like a giant centipede. So it's like multi-plated armor, real fast, and he was like a human train. You know what I mean? Like I'm yeah, I'm not upset with it, but at the same time, like a part of me is sort of just like it's very generic. So it'll be more interesting when he gets into his like hybrid form and starts fighting Frankie, or if he has a hybrid form, because that's another thing that we should touch on later. But come have a look at Black Maria, right? This is this is something that I picked up straight away, and it's now really confusing me. So she's an ancient zone. She's not a smile user, right? Specifically says ancient zone. So why is it that her face isn't the face of the zone like we see other zone users turn into? No, but look at the spider face under her torso. Yeah. So, yeah, the Jorogumo. Jo- yeah. Yeah. Yes. So it's like I understand it visually, but in terms of like zones that we know so far, like you, yeah. See, this brings me to the thought of someone like Karasu from the Revolutionaries, the Crow guy, where he's like a crow Logia, as opposed to just like a regular zone where he turns into one bird. So I'm wondering if no, he seems to be a zone because of the birds, but it works more like a Logia where he like is intangible because of it. It's like Itachi from Naruto, you know, where I'm wondering if she's on the same subcategory of zone as him, where she might be like, I know it says ancient zone, but it might be some sort of special ancient zone that she like touches upon later, if that makes sense. I also tried to look up whether or not she was poisonous, which there's no information on. So I did. It seems like the type of spider it is more like a tarantula. So it's like got real strong and hard bites, which again leads me to believe that Robin's gonna come save Sanji here. But this is weird because we're at 998 now. When do you think we get to when do you think we get to everyone's matchups, or when to like everyone's facing their opponent? Do you reckon it's by chapter 1000 or a bit after? Hmm. That's interesting. Because I mean, honestly, with the way this chapter ends as well, that's implying that we don't just jump into an Ace flashback versus Kaido. Well, that's what I'm saying. Do you think we 999, which would be next chapter? Do you think we go into an Ace flashback considering how the chapter ends? See, what I see happening is Sanji gets swapped out for Robin versus Black Maria. So Robin helps Sanji now that Marco's freed them up to start moving up to the upper floors. Obviously, Black Maria being a spider, Robin being able to make giant limbs and that to try and crush the spider. She's also fought a spider before. She fought the spider monkey in Thriller Bark. So I dare say, like, it's sort of just like touching back on Robin being the person that crushes bugs out of the Straw Hats, and it's, woman on woman fight because Sanji can't really do anything there. Jinbei versus Who's Who though is super weird to me. I It makes sense because Cat's going after fish, but at the same time, I thought Jinbei was a bit more of a bigger. Like, he's fought Ace to a standstill. He seems like the second division commander level at least, so you would have thought he would have been going for someone a bit higher than Who's Who. Mm. Mm. Well, Queen's not on that level. Queen's 3 levels or 4 levels up on the podium. So what I see happening is, yeah, what I see happening is Queen grabs Zoro, goes to fly Zoro up to Kaido, and then King interferes. Doesn't quite get Zoro up. Maybe throws Zoro to the 5th level, like just throws him onto like the platform, and Luffy meets up with Zoro, and then they both go up the last level to the roof. Or chapter 1000, Luffy gets up there, and maybe Marco throws Zoro through the hole in the roof. Yep, yep. But then it probably has to go that way. It, so it's Marco versus King, Zoro versus Kaido with Luffy. Sanji moves up to fight Queen since he's delayed by one floor to Luffy and Jinbei. But then we don't have anyone fighting Jack immediately. Honestly, next chapter could even get real wild while we're setting up where everyone is. Luffy could see an injured Jack trying to heal up while trying to get to the little top floor. And Luffy, like, could you imagine if Luffy with Rio just one shots Jack? Hmm. See, he's either going to be a wild card. Yeah, he's either going to be a wild card that comes back in healed up and is more of a threat when we think we've started to take down enemies. Sort of how in Dressrosa, we had like Viola healing all the Doflamingo pirates. You know what I mean? And it was like, oh crap, they're back. Or it's because he's weakened now that he's gonna run into someone and just get immediately obliterated while already being down. And so it's just a matter of like having an awesome moment for someone else. Um, Going on to the end here though with Ulti and Page One, they're obviously hunting down Usopp and an army. What really did my head in here is this is Ulti's full dinosaur form, but she looks huge. I didn't think a Pachycephalosaurus was anywhere near that tall. Yeah. Yeah, she looks massive there, which is terrifying, and she's obviously hunting down Zoro and sorry, Nami and Usopp. And then, mm, yeah. Then we have the punched dragon statue, which looks like Luffy when he punched Kaido in dragon form at the beginning of the arc. Yeah, yeah. Mm. Yeah, it definitely looks sort of different to how I would have thought it would. Because I don't know, maybe it's made of gold or something. It's a statue. Oh, I don't know what it's made from though, so it's just a bit weird to me. Um, yeah. Now at this point in time, um, see, with Sasaki fighting Frankie now that they've like mentioned each other's names, I just straight up think that the whole Sasaki being Kokoro's son, it is a thing, but it's not going to be relevant in the story. It's going to be like an SBS. Oh, by the way, yeah, this is Kokoro's son that you know, heard about offhandedly. You know how Oda always adds extra information like that, but it's not relevant. Like Zoro being the nephew of Yasui. Yeah. Which is interesting considering, like, he was friends with Denjiro, so it's sort of like you could almost infer that he's like the most kind or chillest of the Topiropos, seeing as how Denjiro, who's got a huge grudge against Kaido, was like the most chill with him, and they were drinking buddies. That said, Kaido's crew is sort of it's interesting in the sense that it looks like it's being set up so that you have you know how Whitebeard's crew was set up into like you had the medic division, you had the swordsman division, you had the like brawler division sort of thing, and it was set up like an army where like your specialty is where you fall into in the army, and that's what determines what crew you're on. Kaido's crew is looking like it's being set up so like um, Queen's subordinates are bioengineer like fighters. Jack's subordinates are sort of just like the top tier of the fodder. Um, Sasaki's subordinates obviously being like the armored core are like the defensive unit. I would dare say Page One's Who's army is like speed based, all being like feline cats. Um, we haven't seen anyone on Ulti Page One or Ulti or Page One's crew or Drake's, but then we've got Black Maria, who all her subordinates are female, but they also seem to all have some form of like they do seem to all be smile users. They all seem to be gifters and that, and a lot of them seem to be snake based, where they seem like they would have some type of venom or something. So maybe hers, yeah, poison's a woman's, favorite weapon, sort of thing. So it'd be very interesting to see how far Oda goes into that, because it'd be really interesting to see how it's set up. Because again, like Kaido being the world's strongest creature, Whitebeard being the world's strongest man, in a way, their crews matching up like that would make a lot of sense. Mm. Yeah. Like I said, it's sort of like the whole cat picking on a fish in a pond sort of aesthetic at the moment. Um, that being said, as well, he seemed to, in the beginning of the chapter, be dealing with the subordinates reasonably easy, but it's a numbers game here, and although Jinbei's like probably one of the most durable or ridiculously durable characters that we've seen in the series, it'd be interesting to see how it fights up because I'll look it up, and I'm pretty sure Who's Who actually fights with a sword. I think Who's Who and Sasaki were introduced with swords. Hmm. Really? Yeah. Okay. So the dragons are the lizard form because in the Japanese language, lizard and dragon is sort of interchangeable. So page one and ulti having scaled creatures, or not scale, but like that rough textured skin, sort of like the scaling. That might be why they're dragon fruit users. But you're right, cat fruit. So who's who? also is a swordsman. So he's got a sword with a cross guard that looks like three leaves, like sort of like Zoro's petals on his I I actually said earlier in the chapter, right at the very beginning. Did you see the cover page? Yeah. So I thought the rat reminded me a hell of a lot of Kuro, and I was like, it's weird that a rat reminds me of a cat. Although that said, the beginning of this chapter being cat themed, this really sort of does seem like a cat themed chapter with Who's Who. See, I'm really curious about the identity of Who's Who and how he knows Jinbei. Um, Especially because like Who's obviously very familiar with Jinbei and has met him in the past, and so the story could go in one of two ways, where it's like we have seen in the story who this person is, and then meet and interact with Jinbei at some point in like the Fisher Tiger backstory or something like that, or it's someone that we've never seen before that's sort of it's just there to be like, all right, well, you know, we'll find out and just get more backstory on Jinbei. Maybe it's someone that Jinbei's been a bit of a dick to in the past. You know what I mean? Ooh. Yeah, no, I can see that. So 998 flying six, 999. It'd be really interesting if we had King Marco, Sanji, Queen, and even with like I was saying, even if Luffy takes on Jack and just deals with Jack relatively easy, or well, it's interesting because the chapter also has Brook, Robin, and Zoro moving. So Chopper's staying to heal people. So having Brook moving up, who's Brook going to fight? Well, it could be interesting to say, depending on how fast it moves. We have Robin get diverted to Black Maria. Sanji gets freed up and goes to Queen. We could have Zoro make it all the way to the top with Kaido. Marco interferes with King. I think. Uh, No, they're looking for Usopp and Nami, I reckon. And I reckon they're going to get a fight with that when Nami's going to be dealing with mirages to distract them, while Usopp's trying to snipe the Kibidango in their mouth while they try to attack the mirages of Nami's. Which leads me to a possible change in matchup where I know it's being set up this chapter, but we could always have Brook tag out with Jinbei against Who's Who, and have Jinbei move against Jack. I agree. See, it's hard because like I see what you mean there, but if take it into this perspective, right? Frankie, Robin, and Brooke are the they're the old character trio in the Straw Hat. So you got the monster trio, you got the old trio, and then you got the weakling trio, right? And now we've got Jinbei involved. The old trio are always ambiguous as to how strong they are because they were introduced reasonably strong, but we never really ever see them utilized to their full capabilities. So that's like Frankie, Robin, Brooke, right? Brooke only really got highlighted in Whole Cake Island because that was the first arc where he was able to be highlighted since his introduction. Because immediately after him joining the crew got split up, and then 2 year training, and everything's been sort of easy for him. So yeah, you're right. So think of it like this, right? Jembe is at a disadvantage because of speed against who's who. It Jimbe could probably win in a long term fight, but he would get more injured than necessary. Whereas if Brook fights who's a swordsman, Brook's a swordsman, who's a cat, but a saber-toothed cat, so he might try and chew on the bones, and Brook might be immune to like just being nibbled on, seeing as how we've seen it with the minks and that. So it might be like who's well and truly above Brook's pay grade, but Brook has a good matchup as always. um, I don't know. It's interesting because again, if Jinbei takes on who's who, that's fair, but that leaves the only straw hat for me at the moment unaccounted for would be Brook, and I don't see Brook going up against Jack. Well, I agree, and that's the thing where I think that this is going to be the strongest fights the Straw Hats have ever had, and it's not even going to be that they were on these people's level or are as strong as them. That they're just going to like literally pull it out of nowhere. Not the friendship like power of friendship, but just like they really have to pull out all stops. There is no stopping, and this is where they're going to be definitively like you are a Yonko crew or you lose. Okay, I'm actually going to roll with that because it's literally called the Cat Cafe. What do cats drink? So, okay. Which would be good because I've never actually, like, we've never seen Brooke really be a great swordsman. The best person. I can't even say that because Brooke fought Ryuma and lost to Ryuma, and I know Zoro beat Ryuma, but at the same time, like, it didn't even seem like Zoro necessarily beat Ryuma as opposed to just got one hit on Ryuma and Ryuma's soul sort of gave up. So you really don't have a great indicator of that. Hmm. No, it'll be interesting to say the least. But see now I'm real confused where the story's going because for a while I was thinking that maybe the Act 3 ends before Chapter 1000, and then Chapter 1000 was like the beginning of Act 4, but now it's like we're way too late in the game for that to be a possibility. So how long does Act 3 continue on for from here before we get to what's classified as the fights for everything? Because say next chapter, Ulti and Page 1 catch up with Nami and Usopp to some degree, that they're within ice shot range. Say Robin gets up to Sanji, frees Sanji, Sanji goes up a level with Brook. Brook takes on Who's Who, leaving Jinbei to go up a level while Sanji goes out to fight Queen on that level. And then all the other matchups stay the same. So that's only like, it's quick, but it's moving around like 5 people really in one chapter, to then leave it with, I could definitely see that chapter ending with Kid and Killer reaching Kaido and Big Mom on the roof. So like 999 ends with Kid and Killer up there, then 1000 opens with Luffy getting up there. It's there's so much to happen though, because like again at this point in time I feel like Act 3 might last a fair bit longer, but then with this chapter setting up all the Flying Six, I also feel like, okay, we're coming close to the end of Act 3 and we're going to start Act 4 in the matchups. Which, I know Chapter 1000 is going to be somewhat important, but you would have thought the ending of Act 3 would have been very important to have on it. Although that might be, Chapter 1000 might end Act 3 with having Luffy caught up with Kaido, Kid, and Killer and that, and you see all the scabbards, and just say Kaido says they're dead, and none of them can sense their life with observation haki. That would actually be pretty tragic. And like it's like visual. Yeah. Mm. Dude, I didn't even think about that. Luffy literally wouldn't be able to take on Kaido at all without Future Sight, because Kaido exhales, people's arms fall off. I know Luffy's like strong, but like him having like a weakness to slashing abilities, it's like without Future Sight, he's losing an arm. Kid doesn't matter, he's got metal. Law doesn't matter, he can reattach limbs. Mm. Just a Kamehameha out the mouth. Okay, that's definitely something I want to raise now. So, we've seen X Drake, who's defected, Page 1 and Ulti use hybrid forms. We haven't seen any other of Kaido's crew use hybrid forms. And separate to the smiles and all that, like at this point in time, Kaido has 10 Devil Fruit users on his crew. 11 if you include Apu, which is like compared to like Big Mom and her crew, is like really nothing. Like without the deal for the smiles, this has like been pretty mediocre for it. Sorry, just thought here. We still haven't seen all the numbers. We're still missing half the numbers. Yeah, in the well, at least some of them were in the silhouettes when Apu first came in, and with Apu down, with him seemingly being like the Pied Piper of them, they might just go on a rampage and just start sort of coming out of nowhere. I mean, we have Kids Crew. I wouldn't be surprised if we cut over to seeing some of these like numbers introduced and they're already down, and it's just like, oh yeah, Kids Crew took them down off screen. Apu. I could see that actually. Like in all honesty, I for the longest thought Apu was gonna fight Brook, and with how injured Apu is, it probably would be reasonably fair against Brook because I wouldn't exactly put Brook on Supernova level. So it's already like, Apu's down to like half HP. Like he's been banged up here a touch, and then Apu's attacks would they even work on Brook because he's got no ears. Well, he can hear, but he just doesn't. He doesn't have ears to hear, so like, would it affect him the same way? Mm. Well, so do you know what's really interesting? So Kaida's the only Yonko that we haven't had his main ship confirmed yet, right? I just feel like at this point in time, his main ship is Onigashima. Now, think about this. He picked up a portion of the island, but what if normally he also picks up that gate out the front of the island that had the long range sniper cannons? You could, yeah. Now imagine that, and they're shooting just playgrounds down. So they just travel like rocking up to Marineford, shooting that. All actually, if that's his main ship, I wonder how the red hair pirate stopped him going to Marineford. Because that doesn't necessarily make sense to me, unless you had Shanks just like sending out some Mihawk slashes up in the air, and Kaido's like, okay, I don't want to lose the island. I'll go home. But I mean, okay. Do you know what two power ups have just been glaringly overlooked for Kaido's crew at the moment? So you know how we've only seen currently the excluding Drake, Ulti and Page One fight in a hybrid form. They're also the only two that have used Haki so far. So maybe they are just definitively the weakest of the Flying Six, and they've got to use their hybrid form quicker and Haki faster, whereas the others are more tanky. And so thinking about it, hybrid form's a massive power up, Haki's a massive power up. So like, even just like looking at like how they're matched up at the moment, they could really just like deck themselves out with strength, unreasonably so, really quick. Um, with Jinbei's already like more than adept with Haki. He essentially has Ryu with his Fishman Karate without having Ryo. We know he's got Observation Haki as well. With Robin versus Black Maria, we don't necessarily know if Black Maria would have Haki anyway, and based on her ability, she probably wouldn't need it because of poison and all that. Um, with Sasaki, him with Haki, hybrid form or just full zone form, it doesn't matter because Frankie's made from Wapple metal. So that's the same, from memory, that's the same stuff that Whitebeard couldn't quake through in Marineford. So it's kind of like, doesn't really matter if you try to hurt him because you can't hurt him. You know what I mean? Like while he's in Shogun Frankie, he's sort of just mediocrely invulnerable. Sort of like, you know, um, Big Father. Um, Mm. So yeah, without that, it's sort of like they could get powered up really quickly, or they could be nerfed really bad. Because like, say they don't have Haki for the most part. Um, if they're going up against like Haki masters of the likes of the Red Hair Pirates, they're gonna get dealt with really quick. You know, so it's like I could see Oda playing it like Kaido's crew's just physically stronger. They're all zones. They're all ridiculously durable. He's essentially got an army of zombies because of like all the zone abilities and healing factors and that everyone has, but none of them are necessarily overtly skilled, like to a high degree. But it doesn't matter because they're just durable. They get back up. It's like the Impel Down guards. It's like an Impel Down guard's an awakened zone. Luffy can defeat them with a Gear 3 attack, but they get back up. So it's like they don't have to be strong enough to defeat a second division commander, but they can just keep getting back up. Mm. Yeah. See, this is this is what brings me to a possibility for me. Obviously, this is where Kabuki plays, so it's 5 acts. We're in Act 3. It's supposed to end in tragedy, but separate to that, like, Act 4 is supposed to be the main conflict. What if this arc wraps up all the subordinates fights? And so we deal with all the subordinates simultaneously while also having, like, dialogue-heavy chapters. So we're getting that length. And then Act 4 is everyone versus Kaido. And so it doesn't matter that it's all just sort of dialogue, because we'll have Kaido fighting all out with like everyone going all out, a lot of communication and that, and then probably have like the Kaido flashback dealing with rocks and all that, have the Ace flashback and stuff like that, how Ace dealt with Kaido. So it's like you're interchanging all the action with like backstory and history. Mm. Oh, I just forgot something that I've now just been like, oh crap. So I've always been like, yeah, Luffy, Kid, and Law are going to be taking on Kaido immediately. We've got Hawkins here, and Hawkins has a heap of lives again, most likely. Law being down in the basement at the moment, and last time we saw Hawkins, he said he's looking at the chances of survival for a certain man. We thought it was X Drake, but I wouldn't be surprised if Hawkins is like, I know Law's here. I'm gonna go get revenge for him dogging me in the back, and screw you, Drake, for team like backstabbing me. So we might have like the proper drawn out fight between Hawkins and Law. Hawkins obviously has like a bunch of lives under him. Law cutting Hawkins up doesn't matter because it can just be transferred, as we've seen, to his subordinate. So Law's got to kill him 10 times. That's easier said than done though in the situation of war where everything's going on chaotic as hell, and like we don't know if Hawkins has got like some biological weapons or what. Like, we don't have Law's crew nearby to be a nerf against Law, but we've seemingly given Hawkins enough prep time to be at full power to fight Law, and they're like the best matchup for each other. I know we've already seen it this arc, but that might be like a warm-up fight before Law tries to get to Kaido. In the basement, yeah. Yeah, but Hawkins was on the same level as Queen and Drake and then just disappeared. And this was a while ago now. Well, I say he could just because he could make a room and then just swap himself up to the top. Distance isn't really a factor for him. Like, in terms of him getting around, he's the most believable for just immediately getting past everyone. It is interesting. I, I'm now also sort of like just torn with what I think and what I want to happen. Because it's like there's so many possibilities, but it's like next chapter, say half the chapter is setting up where the Topia Ropo meet up with everyone, and then we have 2-3 pages of Ace and Yamato meeting, and it's just like a real quick, real like to the point. Hi, I'm Ace. I want to take on Kaido. Yamato falls in love with Ace, trying to take on Kaido. Ace fails and is like, oh, I've got to leave, but I'll come back one day when I'm stronger and I'll beat Kaido. Mm. It definitely would be interesting. See, I think all flashbacks need to be dealt with before Act 3 ends, though. And the flashbacks got to be, yeah, because I think when we hit Act 4, and Act 4 being the conflict, really, it's going to be quicker than we think, and it's going to be just all fighting, mixed with, like, cutting to different people having dialogues about their fighting, and that. So it's like, just the audible conversation of, like, how the war's going, like a, step-by-step narrative of it. And like you'll have people that talk more while fighting, like Nami and Usopp, and then you'll have like the whole like while they're fighting, Jinbei trying to figure out who's who is. Um, Robin is sassy as anything, so Robin talking to Black Maria. Black Maria might even be like, "Oh, you're that new geisha girl that we hired in the Flower Capital. You've decided to turn on us, have you?" Blah 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 blah. Sasaki and Frankie have so much potential backstory to go through while they're fighting. Like, it could just be like everyone's just laying into each other or just monologuing to each other. No, no, no. Act 5 is a quick one, which is like, for me, I think Act 5 will be 5 chapters. It'll be everyone gets up, heals up, everyone starts to party, we read all the poneglyphs, we start to say our farewells, we get Straw Hats potentially join, and then it ends with we find out what's happening in the rest of the world and we've got to leave. Because it's like they're meant to be like super quick. Like if you're watching an hour and a half long movie, right? Act 1 is like the first 15 minutes of the movie. Acts 2 and 3 are like all the way up to the third point tragedy, and then Act 4 is just all the conflict at the end, and then Act 5 is like just like the last 5 minutes teasing the next stuff and like concluding everything. It's like the after credits scene from a bloody Avengers movie. You know what I mean? And that being said, we have 6 poneglyphs to read, minimum, at the end of this arc. And that's assuming Kaido doesn't have any more than he already does in his possession. Because I know a lot of people have been theorizing that Onigashima might be God Valley. I don't think it's God Valley, but with that mindset, what is to have stopped Kaido going around to places if somewhere like God Valley had a poneglyph and just using his flames to lift up the poneglyph and bring it back to Onigashima? He could have the most poneglyphs out of any Yonko we've seen so far. Just because we know he had a road poneglyph and Big Mom had a road poneglyph, we found out that Big Mom had 3, but she only just got her 3rd poneglyph from Jinbei. Whereas in this situation, it's like there could be a lot more, especially with Wano being the homeland of making poneglyphs. I stand by the possible theory that Wano's so tall and up off the ground because it's actually the corpse of Onigashima. I think... have you seen the maps of Wano? So if you actually look at like a map of Wano at the moment, you've got Mount Fuji in the middle where the flower capital is, right? I say that that's actually the neck of the giant. And so someone at some point has decapitated this giant, right? And its head's just gone flying off and fallen on the ground and become its own island. And the giant was just holding the entire island together. How Oars was called the continent puller. You know what I mean? So it could be like, if you imagine like the mountain's part of the neck and that head would have been at the top, and then you've got big arms sort of stretched out because of how damn big the thing is, trying to like hold up a clump of dirt in its arms. That might be how Wano was formed in the first place. You know what I mean? Because the skull itself, I think I've seen people try to scale the height of Onigashima, and the sword out the front of Onigashima, right? If you remember that big sword, like right out the front. So, oh, actually, not even that. I'll send you this in the Discord. So pretty much like the umbrella out the front is yeah, here. If you look at text chats, I'll put it in the One Piece one. You can see that, yeah. Oh. Might have lost where I just saved this. Oh no, here we go. Here. So if you look at that, right? Compared to the Sunny, which is supposed to be a set height of 56 meters tall, that's the Sunny. That's how big Oars would be. And then that's how big the rest of the stuff at Onigashima is. So you're not just talking like massive, you're talking Colossus here. It's like ridiculous how big this thing would be. So its body being what's actually holding Wano together wouldn't be that far-fetched. And that being said, like, I think the way you open Wano's borders at the end is literally to crumble Wano down to the ground. Like, God Valley, a fight between the Rocks Pirates and the Garp and Roger team up, right? Resulted in the entire island being wiped off the face of the planet. Every time we see a Yonko clash, we see the skies split and all that sort of stuff. Like, even if you look at Marineford, an old, sick Whitebeard versing just, like, Akainu split the island in half like it was no big deal. And that's, like, him old. So, like, my whole viewpoint has always been, like, Yonko and Admirals fighting all out results in the island being destroyed. Like, look at Punk Hazard between Akainu and Aokiji. It's not completely gone, but that's just because of their powers, you know what I mean? It's, like, permanently screwed over. So I could see Wano, at the end of this arc, we've got 2 Yonko and all the Supernovas. However they get defeated, Wano just gets crumbled. Like, it's just not structurally stable anymore, and it just literally falls down to sea level. If that makes sense. Because that's the only... Yeah, so the only way to really open the borders is to make it ground level for people to get in and out. And see, by doing that, by like causing that massive land mass to come crashing down, arguably you could say it like gets rid of the bad sea currents around the island by just like dispersing it. So it'd just make it more accessible for everyone. You know what I mean? So it definitely is a matter of like, yeah, it's weird. There's a lot that can happen, and like heaps to theorize on. But it's like at the same time, it's just sort of like for every chapter that comes out, you can predict half of the next chapter, and the other half is just random. That you're just like, I never would have thought that. Like, I know this chapter for sure, I wouldn't have been saying, oh yeah, we're going to see Ace having melted a dragon statue out the front of the arc. Or that Apu would be up and fighting Drake. That Marco would be fighting Zoro and bloody Brook for 2 seconds. It's good, yeah, it's unpredictability which makes it more interesting. That being said, though, that unpredictable. I mean, that's just definitively, though, one of One Piece's biggest strengths, man. Is like, for everything that you think you know, there's stuff that you just don't know or don't understand. And it's just, because there's so many dangling plot threads, and they're all specifically ambiguous, it's just always a talking point. Like, we've now seen, I think, enough of Kaido's crew to have a relatively good understanding of it, to be like, okay, how do you reckon Kaido's crew would fare up against like Big Mom's crew or Whitebeard's crew, considering we've seen their crews fully fleshed out to a lot of extent. The only difference I would say is we haven't seen like the Flying Six and Commanders fight all out yet, but even then, like, realistically, Jack was getting his ass handed to him by the Minx in hybrid form, in Sulong form. And I know it was like pretty quick. It was only like a one hit, and Jack's face was just cut to hell after he was just like sort of injured. And then Kaido's like stepped down. But like, he was getting jacked up. Literally, Jack getting jacked up, and didn't decide to go into hybrid form. Mm. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I... Ooh, okay. So, in Zo, um, Luffy said he wanted to defeat Jack, right? He said, oh, I hope I meet that scumbag one day and beat him up. Do you know what would actually be sick? He's trying to heal up. Zoro gets thrown up to the roof but intercepted by King and knocked up to the top floor with Luffy. So he doesn't get up there before or after Luffy. So they're right at the top. Jack comes down the stairs, is face to face with the both of them. The both of them are like, you must be Jack, right? Jack goes into hybrid form while injured and uses 3 sword style, one in each hand and then one with his trunk. And then you have Zoro and Luffy tag team and one-shot Jack with a combo attack. I feel like though that would be like just specifically funny for it, because then the alternative for it is if Zoro fought Jack and Jack had 3 forward style, but Sanji fights Queen and like it just, I understand the power scaling, but I really feel like Zoro's going to come out on top after this arc. Like, and I don't say that because I'm a Sanji hater or anything like that, but like I feel like the gag at the end of this arc when the people come out with bounties is that like Zoro will be over a bill, Jinbei would be like a bill flat, and Sanji will be just under a bill. So it's sort of like Sanji's like, that's so unfair. I took on someone stronger than you, and you get higher bounties than me. See, I think he's going to cut Kaido, but I don't know to what extent he's going to cut Kaido. Because if it's like the way he cut a poo, it's sort of like, is it really impressive? Like Ryuma cut a dragon's head clean off. If Zoro cuts Kaido, it's just like, you did what the Scabbards did. Yeah. Oh, the power scalers, man. Um, but then that same thing being said, right? So it's like if Zoro can't like if Zoro cuts Kaido's head off, it's just like no, that's ridiculous. If Zoro just cuts Kaido, it's like well, the Scabbards did that, so he's as impressive as a Scabbard. Which yeah, it's a big deal, but to the people of Wano, it's not like super special. You know what I mean? Like if he cut like Kaido's hand off or something like that, that's a different thing. Like he gets revenge for Okiku and cuts Kaido's arm off. Then we're like, oh, okay, all right, that's impressive. I don't know. It's weird. There's a lot of possibilities with it. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about for this chapter? Yeah, I know. No, no, it's just the cover pages. So it's like, you know how you get the color spreads and that at the front of some pages instead of like the cover story. So the next two will be that. Although the next two will probably be a real hype considering it's 999 and 1000. It feels so weird. Have you seen the release schedule for the next two chapters? No, no, no. Oh yeah, the official comes out on the 4th, but the scans will come out on Christmas Day. So, got to be damn well happy for that. Do you have any predictions for next chapter at this point? I okay, so I do have to say this: is X Drake just not sort of disappointing? Just like I feel like his swordsmanship is disappointing. I should say, like as a member of the Marines and a rear admiral, how are we not seeing him use some of like these six powers? How are we not seeing him now that we've like got Haki properly introduced? How are we not seeing him flying around with like Hakied up like his club and bloody rapier or javelin or whatever it is that he's got? Like I know like months and months ago I used to have arguments with people all the time where I'm like no, no, X Drake is gonna fight Zoro because we're gonna have Zoro who's regarded as a monster fight Drake, who's a literal dinosaur, so he has got all the physical attributes of an ancient zone, and then that just like went straight down the wayside. So it's like I feel let down with his like potential as a combatant, especially when he was struggling so hard with Apu. And I know Apu's like got a bounty at 350 mil, but like Zoro cut one of his tonfas in half, whereas X Drake didn't even seemingly have Haki on his club while he was bashing him, which just feels like it's a bit of a letdown in a way. Maybe I'm expecting too much. Like he's been cool. I like him. Ooh, Okay, do you know what would be interesting? So you know how we haven't seen any of Kaido's crew's bounties yet, except for Kaido himself? What if we don't get any of their bounties? And one of the big things is at the end of the arc, ex Drake finally gets back in contact with the Marines and gives a report to say Kaido and Big Mom have been taken down, or at least Kaido's been taken down. And he goes, "I need you to get up the bounty list," and they get up all the Beast Pirate bounties, and Drake goes through and tells them who beat who, so they can update all the bounties from Wano. So it's like, you know how like normally we're like sitting there like, oh my god, oh we're waiting for this person's bounty, like, you know, like it's like, what's Luffy's bounty going to be after Wano and that? It's like, well, the Marines aren't here, so there's no reason to give him a bounty unless Drake reports it in. If Drake reports it in, imagine if we start getting the bounty list, because the only bounty we have is Queens and Jacks, right? So maybe we get Kings, maybe we get them, but like we have a rough idea of how expensive they are. But then could you imagine if at the end of the arc we're like, oh yeah, you know, Jack's $1 billion, Queen's $1 billion, 320 million, King was like 1.6 billion and stuff like that. And then we just have like a whole chapter dedicated to just going through what all their bounties were, and then how ridiculously more wanted the Straw Hats are after this. Like, everyone gets huge increases because they took down like the physically most intimidating Yonko crew. It'd be interesting. I don't know. I feel also let down that we haven't seen Kid's crew more. Like, Law's crew is understandable because they're just not here at the moment. But like, see, I I think it's the opposite in the sense where if we're looking, so like I was planning to make a video on this, but I'll just mention it here, right? And probably do a video on it elsewhere at some other point. Oda does a thing that I call like storytelling in threes, where he specifically tells one story 3 times with 3 different perspectives and outcomes. And that's something that I think he does. It does his storytelling amazingly. You know what I mean? So like, I think one of the themes of threes that he's got going on in the story is between Luffy, Blackbeard, and Kid, and those are the 3 people who are just the contenders for Pirate King. No one else has a chance of becoming Pirate King, but those are the 3 contenders, right? So we have, like, if you look at it like a straight line with a line coming off the right of it, right? So it's just sort of like a T on its side. In one direction, you have Luffy, who throughout the entire course of the story had had all his like stuff that he does suppressed. Like, they didn't give him a proper bounty for taking out Crocodile. They didn't know that he took out Enel. They tried to hush up him taking on Eni's lobby. They didn't give him any credit for taking down Moria. In the war, he was just sort of blended in the background, you know what I mean? Like, they're always underselling Luffy. But now it seems like he just always gets the credit that comes through, regardless of him actually, like, not wanting the credit. Whereas, yeah, yeah. But if you look at it, like, that's Luffy's progression story, like, always getting undersold but over delivering on everything, right? You go in the opposite direction and you have Blackbeard, who didn't have a bounty, and then all of a sudden just did 3 feats back to back and is considered a Yonko straight up. Got a massive first bounty of 2.2 billion. He's just like went from zero to hero overnight, right? And he's identical in personality to Luffy, but just sort of like the inverse of it. So you have one person that's bounty was suppressed and then just skyrockets in Luffy. You have Blackbeard who just does stuff for himself and it just comes to him the same way. But then you have Kid, and Kid seemingly is specifically like he's like Luffy. We know his personality is like Luffy, which means his personality is also like Blackbeard's, right? But he's actively seeking the fame. He's like, I'm the one that's going to get the fame for taking down Kaido. I want to get famous for this. I want to get famous for that. But his bounty's only 370 mil. And like realistically, we know that he's done essentially the same feats as Luffy. He just doesn't get the credit because he wants the credit. Whereas Luffy doesn't care about the credit and gets the credit. I see I see Kid's crew the same way in a sense, where if you look at all of them, right, the Straw Hats are always criminally underrated for what they're worth, but then they just get skyrocketing bounties when it comes through. Blackbeard's crew, the original crew all had low bounties, reasonably low bounties, right? So seemingly like Blackbeard, it was the opposite, where it's like the weakest member of the Blackbeard crew had the highest bounty pre-time skip that we learned in the Viva cards, right? And so they were sort of not caring on bounty, did stuff for themselves, and now they're a Yonko crew. Whereas Kid is seemingly trying to actively seek out glory, and like you assume his crew follows the same like mindset as him, right? But I feel like they might get similar feats, but we might not even see them. Like I said before, his crew might have already taken down some of the numbers, but we don't see it, so we don't credit him for it. So they just never get any due credit, if that makes sense. And it's like, even looking at like the way the characters are, they're just always being downplayed regardless on situation and circumstance. Like you have Zoro versus Killer. You have both of them nerfed. Arguably one way more nerfed than the other, depending on how you want to go about it. It doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, you have two swordsmen that were nerfed. One had one sword missing. The other was using weapons that aren't his primary weapon. And they both one-shot each other. So it's like Zoro gets the credit there from the community as well. Because it's like, oh, well, you know, Killer needed to have the bandit there to take advantage of that to beat him, and then immediately got one shot. But it's like, well, okay, you had Killer there not using his primary weapon, right? See an opening, take an opening, and as a swordsman, it's your own damn fault for having an opening. Killer hurt Zoro, and then cop a second nerf in not having his two weapons, having one of his non-primary weapons stolen from him, and then it was one sword versus three. As a dual swordsman, one sword versus three is no different to being a three swords user and having two swords versus a dual swordsman. You know what I mean? It's just like, in terms of credit, Kid's crew's always getting dicked on. Like, Kid's gone up against the Red Hair Pirates. He went up and injured one of Big Mom's commanders, and then he's tangled with Kaido. And seemingly what we were told by Hawkins, an unbiased source, is him and Killer fought Kaido until they passed out from exhaustion. So it wasn't like they immediately got, dicked on, which they probably would have, but it's really different in how that narrative gets spun to the world. Yeah. And we, and I mean, we don't even, we know that Apu also had led Kaido there, so we don't know what Apu did in that situation. Apu might have just been starting to hit him in the back as well, so they might have been fighting a Yonko and a Supernova. Hawkins just standing by, just like, I'm gonna see how this plays out. let them hit him. And that's just what he does as well, and it's not a bad thing either. Like, he's actually just like, mm. Well, I know we haven't really touched on this, but like, we've talked about this privately. I know where we are going up against two Yonko here, but we've never seen anyone top tier go all out. We haven't seen a Yonko go all out. We haven't seen an Admiral go all out. We've seen aftermath of those sorts of battles, and it's always ridiculous. But just to put it into perspective, Kaido in if Kaido is a dragon or has a dragon zone or whatever you want to believe, right? At the end of the day, he's got wind attacks, he's got fire that can lift up anything, and he's got lightning, right? And then fire breath. So, apart from Luffy being immune to the lightning, right? You have to think about it where if this guy goes into hybrid form and he's just like a lizard man, right? Running around, he's just smacking people with this club. He exhales, sends out air slashes that just dice anyone and anything up, right? If someone's about to sneak up on him, he literally uses the fire to lift up the ground underneath him to dodge or to knock them off balance. He, like, we have only seen Kaido fight by going, "Can you hurt me? If you can hurt me, you can beat me," and he almost goes, "I'll let you beat me" at that point. Like, if you're going to be able to land a fatal kill, like fatal blow, it's like, I'll let you do it. But we've never seen what happens on the flip side, where if you're hurting him and you're beating the crap out of him, if he's like, maybe I don't want to die, maybe I want to beat you, right? Maybe you're worth a fight. And what if he goes full blown all out psycho, and like, it's not that hard for him to be the world's strongest man, where like, I know in the latest episode of the anime, I don't know if you saw this, I sent you a link for it. Did you see the fight between Kaido and Big Mom? Mm. So Big Mom does an Izuku sovereignty or whatever. So that massive projectile slash, and Kaido redirects it with his club and smacks it back at her, and it just like dissipates. But it's like just him in terms of like his club's brawling ability. According to that, it's like a deleting level attack. You know what I mean? So it's like he's walking around with that, just one-shotting people of Luffy level. He's exhaling, sending out slashes that are cutting commander level people to pieces, right? He gets mad, just laser breaths someone with bloody fire. They're done. Meanwhile, he's just flexing and lightning's just blasting around him. That's like, we haven't seen that level come from him, but he should be capable of it, and that's terrifying. Yeah. And that is not even accounting for Big Mom and Big Mom being present and how she would deal with you as a combatant. Because yeah, we've seen Big Mom just like be a bit of a meme and that, but she was threatening in Whole Cake, and she's always been a bit of a gag character, and it's just something that people got to deal with. But like, in terms of her just fighting, like realistically, she's got as much defense as Kaido. She's got a delete, like an island deleting attack with her bloody Elbaf spear, and that's without even using her devil fruit. She Madra can solo the verse, Mum said. Like, in terms of, like, durability in that, like, it is ridiculous. And then if you look at her devil fruit and add her devil fruit into the mix here, right? We saw what happened when she makes Napoleon Giant, adds fire to it. We haven't seen her in that situation with Zeus. So imagine if Fire Lightning Sword, if she swings it, right, you get burnt. If you block and survive from the burn, you get electrocuted from lightning jumping off the blade to you. And she's just going around as an untouchable giant, just swinging that around. And we've seen that she's actually, like, ridiculously, like, she's got dexterity. She's quick. She can, like, just jump around, swinging that thing around. The big girl got moves. And that's... No, okay. What I think's happened there is Zeus and Prometheus, they're injured from Marco. She can still use their ability, they're just not conscious. Maybe, like, that's what happens when, like, you run out of the amount of soul that's in them or something, and she's got to, like, fuel them up again. I don't know, it's weird. But even then, it's like... I cannot for the life of me wrap my head around. You've got those two people up there. We're being told, we're going to go fight them. We're going to go beat them up, right? And people are still like, there's no chance Kid has any form of Rio. There's no chance that Kid can hurt someone like that. It's like, you expect Luffy to take down both of them? Or Zoro and Luffy to take down one each? Like, this same Luffy that just literally got knocked out like an hour ago by a poo just beating his breast. I mean, yeah, no. I I see it like that, but I mean, in that situation, the Gamma Knife, I see that as like doing 50% of Dothie's health. Like, I think if Law didn't hit Dothie with the Gamma Knife there, with what Luffy was using, he would have run out of Gear 4 way too quick, and Dothie would have just, like, gone ape on him. Yeah. No, 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 no. Below below 50%, Dothie goes into that, like, blood rage. But, like, I do see it as, like, a 50% health cut thing. Because you got to think about it. In that fight, and this is probably for another video, we should probably have this discussion sometime, but Dothie gets hit with the Gamma Knife, and then for the rest of the arc, he's holding his side, having to rearrange his organs because his organs have been, like, decimated, and he's just stitching himself back together. He's, like, definitively nerfed after that point. Whereas if you do that against someone that can't perform first aid on themselves, like if Law does that against someone like Jack, like Jack's down for ages until he heals up. Yeah. He would have dropped Law. Yeah, no, I agree. Although, that being said, with the way Law's ability works, Law might have had a better time than Luffy dealing with the Awakening, because just, like, think about it in the sense that, like, Doflamingo does the Awakening, makes those giant god threads to attack. Law just makes a room and then just cuts them. Once they're severed, Doflamingo loses, like, the ability to control them, maybe. That's semantics, though. Like, Doflamingo beats Law. Doflamingo beats Law definitively to me because I think even if Law's ability is stronger than Dofi's, Dofi psychologically just beat him. Like, Law got mad. Law lost his cool, and that's the one thing that Law shouldn't have done in this situation, and Doflamingo knew that, and that's what Doflamingo was best at doing. Like, baiting people into a rage. Whereas Luffy just is always mad when he's fighting anyway, because he's like, I want to beat you up. Mm. Yeah, it does suffer from Dragon Ball logic with that, where it's just like we've got to see how long we can last in our weaker form before we pull out like the next level. But yeah, I I will yeah, it's crazy. Like realistically, it's like pretty ridiculous. I mean, like we're talking about a ridiculous series anyway, but like yeah, it's odd the choices in fights. Like realistically, I know Oda's like rushing to get through some of this stuff, so we're skipping stuff that's unnecessary. But like, I would be all for One Piece finishes. We get an artist that gets to go back and add in like the rest of the fight that we didn't see and stuff like that, and like expand the manga and stuff like that. Because like so much stuff gets skipped over because we're probably going to see them later and get that sort of stuff saved. But after people have seen all that, it's like, well, can we go back and have a look at these things? We would be interested in them. You know what I mean? Like, I, for the life of me, would love to see Aokiji versus Akainu. I don't care if it's a 10-day fight, 5-day fight. I'm pretty sure it's a 10-day fight. I don't care if it's a 10-day fight. I want to see that. I want to see every second of that. I don't care if it's just like the lava and ice melting for like 30 chapters. It's just like, oh, okay. This is how admirals fight. You know what I mean? Hey, I mean, power scaling. It is what it is, man. You got to take the good and the bad. Everyone, everyone seems to forget one thing about power scaling in One Piece, and that's the stronger the power, the bigger the character flaw, and the bigger the character flaw, the bigger the opening for getting crapped on by someone with a weaker power that's just more like emotionally in tune. All right, and any last things to say? Yeah. All right. Well, catch yous all next time. Peace. Have a good week in that. And I think our next stream we were looking at doing midway through the week, weren't we? Yeah, Wednesday-ish. So until then, have a good one. Hope you enjoyed chapter 998 and enjoy the countdown to chapter 1000. Have a lovely day and yeah, bye.